Well, Guillermo Söhnlein, co-founder of Oceangate, joins me now. Very good to have you here. It's quite a day, really, after what happened to Titan. This US Coast Guard report, do you think it's a fair assessment of what it appears to be a disaster waiting to happen?
Well, first of all, it's over 300 pages. It just came out a few hours ago, right? So I haven't had a chance to read the whole thing. I just kind of reviewed it as quickly as I could. I had two or three thoughts as I was reading through it. The first thought was obviously for the 4 families that lost 5 loved ones. Hopefully this report gives them some sense of closure, or at least helps them get to the next stage of mourning for them. The second thought I had, especially reading some of the sections, was something I've been suffering from for the last 2 years, is a bit of survivor's guilt. Thinking maybe if I had stayed at the company and was there, maybe I could have done something to help change the outcome and kind of change the trajectory that it was on. But the third thing I thought about as I got deeper into the report, again, very high level, is the huge task that this investigation board took on in taking on such a huge, not just a huge investigation, but something that's very unknown, right? This is the first sub-accident in decades. And so there were so many complexities to this, and I think the investigators did a great job. But there's also a lot of gaps in the report, even things in the sections that I looked at. So, I hope that we'll get more answers than questions after this. But in reality, with accidents like this, we always end up with gaps going forward.
Isn't the bottom line, though, that this vessel was just not fit for purpose? There's a reason why deep-sea vessels are spherical. The carbon fibre structure introduced flaws, exacerbated by pressure over time. This was never meant to head to the Titanic so many times.
Well, first of all, I'm not an engineer. Secondly, I didn't get to read that part of the report yet. Although I did look at one section of the report that seemed to talk about carbon fiber itself. And this is where I know there are gaps in the report, because even what that section of the report had pieces missing from it, and it was clear that they hadn't looked at everything. Because there's a company in Rhode Island that has built carbon fiber cylindrical submersibles, and they've been doing this for the last 5 years on your contract with the U.S. Navy. They've built dozens of these to go deeper than Titan did, hundreds of dives, and they've had absolutely no problems. Now, those are robotic, autonomous subs, but the engineering is the same, right? And that company, when I talked with them, they told me that anybody who went on camera and critiqued carbon fiber for deep submersibles just showcased that they've never worked with carbon fiber and they don't understand carbon fiber. And the fact that company wasn't even mentioned in that section of the report makes me think that there are other parts of the report that need a little bit more, a deep dive on it.
So you set up Oceangate with Stockton Rush back in 2009,
yes.
Left in 2013 for your own, personal logistical reasons. What was the original dream for it? What was your vision?
Yeah, in fact, I just finished writing a memoir of my time as co-founder and CEO of Oceangate called Titan Unfinished. It comes out in November. And the main reason for writing the book was as part of my grieving process. But the main reason for publishing the book is to help people get a better context on everything that they've seen in the media over the last 2 years, everything they're reading in the Coast Guard report. Not necessarily to change anyone's mind, because everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but hopefully as they form opinions, they'll form them with greater context. And the founding vision back in 2009, unfortunately, is still needed today. It was really to help humanity get better access to the deep oceans so that we can explore our oceans, we can study our oceans, and we can protect our ocean planet. I know that's what drove me in Stockton to start this. That's still necessary today. I know that's the same thing that drove him till the day he died, because I talked with him right before he left Seattle to go to Canada for this expedition.
So how do you think he's being portrayed, and has it been unfairly? Because you get the impression he's a blind enthusiast, who's a Titanic obsessive, a man possibly seeking money and acclaim. Who was he? What drove him? And is he culpable for what happened? And should he have faced criminal liability should he be alive today.
Yeah. So I'm probably going to take some heat for this, right? But for people that hadn't heard of Stockton Rush before 2 years ago, and all you know about him is what you've seen or heard in the media or what you're going to read in the Coast Guard report, it's easy to see him as a criminal, as a villain, as hubris, led by hubris and ego. For those of us that knew him before all that, he's a human being, just like us. He's flawed, just like us. He's a husband, a father, a grandfather, a brother, a friend, a colleague. And he was really driven by an altruistic drive to help humanity, to help save our planet. And if there was any hubris involved, I think it's because he felt that he had finally come up with a solution that would help give humans greater access to our oceans. And I think that's what was driving him, and that was the sense of urgency that he had to kind of push forward. Did he make mistakes? Especially according to the report, it looks like he did. You know, I can't defend him. I can't defend what he did or what he said, because he did what he did and he said what he said. And for a lot of it, I wasn't there, right? Because I had left earlier. But there's greater context to it all.
But he was cavalier, certainly cavalier, with safety, with regulations. We heard tonight that it was unregistered, the US Coast Guard has said, didn't register the Titan, so there was no oversight of it. With inspections as well. I go back to the flaws in this carbon fiber structure over time. You know, the mistakes were daily and ongoing.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what's driving my survivor's guilt, is knowing that while I was there, we were complying with a lot of rules and regulations. We were operating in U.S. waters, so we were complying with the Coast Guard, cooperating with every sector, getting approvals there. A lot of these decisions that I read about in the report were made after I left. And I think part of me feels, and this is my own ego, right? Part of me feels like if I was still there, maybe I could have helped drive that a little bit differently. But I wasn't there, so I don't actually know who made what decisions when.
Well, you left the company before the Titanic expeditions began. If you'd had the opportunity to go on Titan as it was at the time of this implosion, would you have gone on it?
I had opportunities. I actually offered to go on the very first test dive that Stockton did by himself. I felt a little bit like Viper in Top Gun, offering to go with Maverick as his Rio. But he didn't want me to go. He didn't want anyone else to go. He was only going to risk himself on that first dive. And I had opportunities to go to Titanic. But what drove me in Stockton was exploration, to go somewhere no one had gone before. And Titanic is not exploration. It's somewhere that a lot of people have gone before. That's why when people say that Stockton was obsessed with Titanic, that's not true. He didn't really like Titanic. He wanted to go to hydrothermal vents. And that he couldn't do until the technology had been proven out, and the place to prove it out was the Titanic.
Guillermo Söhnlein, really appreciate you coming in, co-founder of Oceangate. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me.